three photographers from a show called, strangely enough, Three Photographers. And we have Michael TERESKO, Susan EADY
Honda EADY.
EADY. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, and Michael BELEW. And I am Michael PAUKER. I curated the show. And, why do you take the photographs you take? I mean, this is such a photography today is so seemingly democratic, and it seems like it's anything is fodder. So in a way that's very liberating, but another way you have to figure out what you want to take pictures of. So how do you do it?
Somewhat of a mystery.
Yeah. Okay.
I was looking at some quotes about photography this morning just to jog my brain a little bit, and there was one from Gary Winogrand which said that he takes pictures of things to find out what they look like when they're photographed. Mm-hmm. And I thought that just made perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think right now I shoot because I want to examine things that that caught my eye, because sometimes those little somewhat random blips I think can kind of reveal something else to me. Maybe not at that moment, but I want to kind of save that, and so I can kind of contemplate it later. And sometimes it is, what does this look like when I photograph it? Yeah, it's that curiosity, but it's about kind of collecting it for later on.
I think it's kind of a simplistic explanation, but I photograph what I see, and that's all I can do. If it catches my eye, I see it. I look at other people's work, and I like it, but I would never see that behind the viewfinder. So,
do you have a sense of what makes something catch your eye?
not always. A lot of times it's intuitively.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just something.
It's just something inside feels right.
Yeah.
So I do it. But the quote you made makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's just that curiosity about what does this look like, or you see something there, and can I bring that out in the image, and then you get all those surprises later that you didn't think you saw. I think that's really.
Or can I make it personal to kind of reflect the way you see?
Mm-hmm. You mean not everybody sees it like that?
No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I stopped at a red light and turned to my left and grabbed my camera.
You know, it's only the most intricately composed, though, in a sense. There's a look about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something. I saw it. It was there.
It's kismet.
Sometimes the parts just come together.
Did you really know at the time what caught your eye, or there was just something?
It was so busy, and there were so many things going on, but yet there was some structure there, and the colors too. You know, that's coming. You know, years and years ago. You know, black and white was all there was really. You know, until the '70s when William Eggleston started doing a lot of color. But since I got back into doing photography on a regular basis, and as most people do, I work digitally for the most part. The color stuff is just awesome. You know, it's so much fun to play with the color and to find colors that work together, and it's just a whole another aspect. And I love black and white photography. I still do a bunch of it, but I love playing with the color images also, and trying to find things that have I don't know, musical color.
I think digital changed color a lot.
Yeah.
I think it made color easier to do, but I think you can do more with color in digital than you could in the darkroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start in black and white too?
Oh yeah.
Did you start?
Yeah. When I was a teenager. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a long time ago.
And you did too.
I did too. I was a black and white photographer until maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Exclusively. unless I shot slides or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
How about you, Sybil?
No, I started in about 2000 because I was working on a project. I was doing project management, relocation, and things like that. So I had to document things, and I found that, oh, this is pretty cool. And especially because learning about Lightroom, it's like then I have total control. And well, not that I use the tool that well, but there's a steep learning curve on it, and I just, I think that's probably one of the leftovers. The target image, those guys working. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I used to take pictures of when I was working, and if you can make it a little more dramatic, it's kind of more fun to bring that to a meeting, and they get distracted. Yeah.
Tell us about the scale in your work, because it seems it seems so interesting that they're all similar size and in quite small format, at least for nowadays in photography. And I think that I see things in them that I wouldn't see if they were printed larger. I think, and I wonder about how some of them would look printed larger. But can you tell us just how you've arrived at that choice?
At this choice right now,
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get through a whole bunch of them. But I tend to start working small, and in fact, I'll use sometimes out of my phone. I'll use like this little Canon printer, and you get a 4x6 image or something, and then I'll kind of look at that for a while. Sometimes I'll post something online, and then this has become kind of a little presentation I like. I like the intimacy of the images, that you kind of have to stick your nose in it.
Right.
And if I were doing big ones, I probably would have had like 4 of them for this show. So, yeah. But I just like it small.
Yeah.
I preferably like it if people could hold the print in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think it really should be exhibited. I shoot these just kind of going through everyday life, whether it's I'm traveling, and I don't travel that much, but when I do, somehow that gets kind of freer. We do road trips as a family, and so some of them, like that one up there, that's just out the side of the window as we're, whatever speed we're going, fast. And if it's interesting in the area, I'll shoot, and hopefully I'll get something. And I did see that tree, and I hope that it would work out. So that's a lot of that kind of stuff. Or just going to the store at night, Target, 10 o'clock. The light was just really beautiful. And so I had to take a few before they told me not to take pictures. Usually people don't like that. But if you have a cell phone, you're kind of invisible. You're just that, lady taking pictures. I don't know what she's doing, so they don't think much of it. And a lot of it is just like being at somebody's house at their party, and you see something like those, the amaryllis. In fact, my friends came in the other night, and she goes, "I recognize part of that, but I don't ever remember having that there. Did you put that there?" So things like that. Let's see. And parts of like childhood kind of come back, because like the picture above it is at Stanford Shopping Center, walking down this aisle, and I always like walking down there because it reminds me of a shoe store that used to be there that had monkeys in it. And
so that looks like a drawing too. That could so easily be a drawing.
Yeah, without us knowing anything about it, and there's something. There is a kind of nostalgia in it, I think.
Yeah, and to see the person walking away, it's a little sad, I guess. I mean, that's my take, but whatever your take is very good.
One thing I've noticed with some of the small ones, I think this it's true of this one, maybe even more true of the one you had in the original show, the gooey ducks, giant clams, is you can crowd things into a small image, and if you do it right at the scale of the various shapes and in accord with the entire thing is there, then it really gets quite large. I mean, those
Yes.
Those jackfruit are
They're big.
yeah.
Yeah, they're quite
They're
large.
sort of pressing out.
And I do like to crowd things.
No. Some of the small ones, I think, like this one, and these landscape views, yeah, they do take on a kind of monumentality in a way. So that dumpsters. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, or I've been corrected that it's more of a storage container.
Storage. Okay, storage container.
A storage container
You know,
behind a.
it's this monumental thing. Somehow, the way it's lit, it could be the slab from 2001 or something.
Well, to me, it did look very dramatic
Yeah.
because we're not used to it behind that particular restaurant, and just kind of walking by it was, oh wow, that's pretty majestic right there, and it was pretty clean.
It's kind of counterintuitive to print it small, but if you're trying to stress the monumentality, but I think it works. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there's times when I've used a lot of color, almost too much, oversaturated. And I think you just kind of go through the ebbs and flows. I think that this year for me, I had felt a little more down about things, so everything became a little more black and white. And I think maybe the next time I print these, there'll be a little bit more color coming out. So it's not something that is, it always changes. It's not static. I think preference. And I think the photographers here would say, when you somebody has you print something again, usually you look at it and you might kind of change it because we can. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, I know that that you in particular, Jerry, prefer color. And sometimes too, I find that the color for me, it distracts. I wanted to somehow say something else, and it just kind of takes me out of that. But I do print sometimes these do quick and dirty prints where I'll kind of put them up and I'll look at them, and they're just real, and they may never make it, and some of these have. So they're very, I like looking at images like this. I like holding them, I like sticking them up and
As
just...
opposed to, for instance, looking at it on a computer.
Yeah, because it's not, and that's okay. That's fine too, but there's nothing like a print. I think that's kind of the bottom line with photography for me. Mm-hmm. It's all about the print, so.
I think too that might have to do with our generation. We kind of came from that print generation, as opposed to the younger kids now.
Right.
Have no interest in printing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting to when somebody does see a really good print of their work, and they usually don't print. Mm-hmm. It's a whole new ballgame for them, mm-hmm. and I would hope they're able to see that. Yeah.
It has a different quality.
Yeah. Yes. Very different. Mm-hmm. So once I do something and if I post it online, then that's kind of easy. But it's printing. It's just a whole other thing. And it's good. It kind of helps me refine what am I really going for? What do I really like?
Do you think print kind of invites more contemplation versus digital images?
The print? Oh, yes.
Yeah, that seems like a huge difference there.
Yes.
Because you can have really wonderful digital images, and you think, well, there's a few billion others right there, and that sort of takes your focus away.
Right,
at least
and
for
then you
me.
start flipping through them really
Yeah,
fast.
exactly, yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely right.
And there's a level of craft involved in making prints, I think, that doesn't come into play anywhere near as much when you're just doing a screen image. I mean, it took me a while to be able to print things to my liking, and it's not a skill that you got to work at it, and there's definitely a craft involved in doing it.
So, one question I guess I have is, I think I look at your work and I think it's mostly seems to be man-made places, and yet there's traces of people, but no people. Is that is this a representative sampling in that sense?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't take pictures of people very often, at least not for what I call for my own work.
Right.
Rarely are there people involved.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah.
Well, I have it's working with people is a completely different skill set.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of enjoy the being in places where I'm more or less by myself, and that process of wandering around in quiet, lonely places is it really works for me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an exception because I was in traffic, but most of the time I'm looking for places that have sort of a lonely feel to them.
Yeah, I think that overall feeling comes out, and the shadows are very important part of some of the images. Think about photography, but Edward Hopper paintings.
Yeah, there is some of that there.
And definitely a sense of you're not presenting us with things that are conventionally beautiful, but I think you're showing you're turning them into that somehow.
I'm trying to find another quote from William Eggleston. It was a pretty famous one from him, where he said he's at war with the obvious, and that's kind of it's a personless clothing. It's from a museum at the Alameda Naval Air Station, an naval aviation museum, and it was just a diorama and a uniform display that they had there. And I kind of like doing that, although I don't have many. I do take a lot of pictures inside museums of especially like obscure, poorly attended museums. And no one really likes those photographs very much but me, but I thought this one, I still do it just because I enjoy doing it. But this one I thought worked. There's a surreal aspect to it that I thought worked pretty well.
So do you have a series that you shot in the museum? Have you put something together?
On Flickr, I have a bunch of museum shots that I stuck in a gallery, but I haven't. That's been in my head as something to work on, but I haven't pulled that together yet.
That would be definitely.
It would work better if they were all in a series, but throwing them out there, amongst the other stuff.
Office, that would be a series.
Yeah.
War with the office for sure.
Michael, what about that one right there?
This one?
That is so beautiful.
Well, I'm kind of a gearhead, and that was taken with a kind of an unusual digital camera. It's a Sigma DP2, and the sensor is only used by Sigma for this one series of cameras, and it has this incredible resolution and incredible tonal qualities to it. It's really slow, quirky camera to use, but it just has this fantastic quality to it. And actually, that's right outside where I live.
Is that right?
And and the light was right. I always try and go out in the morning and the evening because the light is so special at that time. And I love that one too. Just those windows and the tones are they're painterly the way they came out, and a lot of that is due to that particular camera. I mean, a lot of the stuff I took with that camera had that quality, but that was, I thought, one of the better ones. Questions, anyone?
Can you tell me more about the one on the end?
That one on the end, on a road trip to New Mexico. We stopped at, there's a drugstore it's just a strip mall that obviously portions of were boarded up. And I don't know, once again, it's that late late afternoon, early evening light, and the colors that generates. I tried that one in black and white, and the colors were just too nice to, so.
I think digitally you have so much more information in the image to deal with. In
Yeah.
film, you're locked into how much information the camera captured at the time of exposure. Where digitally it captures much more,
Yeah, and
way more than you'd ever use.
yeah. And you can pull up shadows and bring back highlights.
Well, you can do that a little bit with film.
With film, but it's not
nearly as much
Yeah.
because you don't have the information there. Yeah. If it's not if it wasn't recorded on the negative, you can't pull it back.
So, Michael, do you want to tell us about your books a little bit? They're such an interesting way of presenting photographs, so we can.
Basically, I just look for different ways to present my work. I can present a body of work in a much smaller space.
Sure.
Yeah. And I like to assemble. I like to assemble each process.
Yeah.
I've always liked to put things together.
And there's something. I mean, Susan was talking about her vision of the ideal way to take in a photograph is holding it in your hands. And this isn't. I mean, you could pick these up or something, but they're sitting there outside of a frame, outside of glass, and all that. So there's something nice about that.
They're more vulnerable, but it is something that it's tactile. You can actually pick it up and hold it and feel what a print feels like.
Yeah.
And I just always like that accordion. I've seen it quite a few times done in many different ways.
Right.
So I decided to put a title with it and make it basically a book. And in some ways, it does. If you fold it up, it does kind of act like a book. It'll get away from you really easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm correct in thinking it's a Japanese form originally, but it sort of has a. I've seen a lot of Japanese pieces that are in that form, and I'm just thinking that is a. It seems like that is an overall aesthetic that permeates the work I've seen here.
It could be. I wasn't really influenced that way, but that's interesting.
And how do you arrive at the decision, color or not color?
It really depends on the image. The black and white would not really work in color for me.
Right.
And the color really didn't work in black and white. Like the one in the upper left, it's all about the color, to me.
Right.
It just wouldn't have the same impact or visual in black and white. It would just kind of fade away.
And you have done this very. Oh, it's a leaf that's on there. Is that or no? That's a leaf that's.
There's a leaf that's on there. I hand colored it.
Hand colored with watercolor or
Pastel pencils.
Yeah.
You can also do the same thing digitally. It's just a lot more work.
I guess when I first saw it, I thought it was done digitally.
It is. I mean,
Yeah. So.
But I did. The leaf was there, and it just seemed like it needed to be highlighted.
Right.
Yeah. And it's very subtle.
Yes. Which is very cool about it. Yeah. I mean, I think with your trees, the color. I said this before, but the color crept up on me initially. The first one I looked at, I didn't realize it was a color print for a few minutes. It just and the thing I liked about that was it was like unfolding over time for me. It was just as if you were standing in the woods and looking through the rain and fog, things would sort of slowly come into focus. And you could get that sense out of the photographs.
A lot of that's the black and white photographer in there. I spent so many years doing just black and white that, and there again, a bold color is not going to enhance it to me. I feel it would the bold colors would kind of take away from it. Not that there's a lot of color there to begin with, but the green is obviously much greener. But when I started desaturating it on a computer, And then I started adding them, one by one and putting them next to each other. It just kind of all made sense to me. And that's kind of the thread that runs through it for me. Yeah.
So, is there a particular kind of emotion you're trying to evoke with them in terms of there's no people in them, and I'm getting feelings of of grandeur in some cases, of just being alone and at the end of the world in some ways, just sort of disappearing. So.
To me, it's about the quietness.
Yeah.
About the peaceful quietness, and you stop and you look at it, and for me anyway, it just kind of relaxes me a little bit, and then I can move on to the next one. And yeah, obviously there was nobody out there when I was doing this. It was I only photographed this series in the rain, and there was no one there, but
banana slugs.
Banana slugs. Banana slugs, right. Saw a lot of banana slugs.
You're not going to some obscure corner of Ecuador to film them or something. They were in your neck of the woods.
Right up here on Skyline.
Yeah.
Like Kings Mountain. I was at a Kings Mountain Art Fair years ago, and usually during the summer it's sunny up there, but sometimes not so much. And it was early in the morning, and there was a heavy layer of fog that formed in that little valley, and I started looking at it and said, wow, that's really, And it was probably a year before I went back. But then once I did, I spent, I think, 9 months up there.
And is this
doing this.
Is this the major part of the body of work, or is there?
In this body of work, there's about 20 or 22 finished prints, but I took probably 1,500. Yeah. And at first, when I first brought it home after the first day, I looked at it and I thought, oh, I just wasted a whole day. And it sat for probably 4 or 5 months. And then I came back to it and started working it a little bit, and that's when I started doing the desaturation. And it started working, so it kind of picked up momentum after that.
How did you come about determining that aspect ratio?
This one?
Yeah.
Trial and error. Yeah. Because these are nothing more than crops of these photographs. Because I didn't use a panoramic camera. But I just started playing with them, and in most, these came up because whatever's on the side that you don't see doesn't really enhance anything. It doesn't make it better. It's just kind of more of the same.
So you just edited
So I
down
just
what
kind of
you were.
distilled it down to what I felt was the essence of the photograph. And I kind of like this format. I think I might work with it. I might work with it for a while.
I like how each of them has a little bit different color play, a little bit different texture, but it's very subtle.
Yeah.
But it's distinct.
Yeah, I didn't, until I was putting these all together, I didn't notice it, say the middle one was much more saturated than the rest. But then when you kind of desaturate, it doesn't,
No, I like it.
it doesn't work as well, so yeah.
It's a little more inviting.
And I kind of thought I was taking a chance with the one with the water drops. I really wasn't sure if people would like it, but then I thought I like it, so it doesn't. So I'm going to put it in. And if people don't like it, then they don't. Yeah, it can be a little nerve-wracking at times, because you're putting yourself out there. These photographs are who I am. I'm relatively a quiet person, kind of a meditative type person, and that's how my photographs come through.